Hey, do you remember those Telltale games that were massive in the 2010s? The story and decision based adventure games? Well, some of the developers from back then went on to make a new company called Ad Hoc Studio, and here we have their first spiritual follow up to those games called Dispatch. And yeah, it's really good. Since I'm someone who loves artistic mediums for the stories they tell and in the different ways they can be told, you would totally expect that I would have been a massive follower of Telltale's reign last decade. The truth is, though, that I only ever played Season 1 of The Walking Dead and Tales from the Borderlands. I did really enjoy my time with both of those titles, but I found that with every game being the same formula with a different skin over the top, I just couldn't get invested into every release. Not even the Batman games were spared, and I'm such a Batman guy that I have random people tell me that I remind them of Bruce Wayne. This will be remedied soon though. Once my upcoming Arkham arc is over, we may just get around to the Telltale game, but they're plans for another day. Time to talk about Dispatch. So what exactly is Dispatch? Well, it truly is very similar to those Telltale games like I mentioned, so let's go over what the story is about since that's the main focus of these games. You are Robert Robertson. You are the superhero Mecha Man. Well, you were anyway until both you and your mecha suit were put out of commission by the same supervillain that killed your father. That's right, in a world where superhero stories are way past oversaturated, we have ourselves another superhero story, but this one is actually good and is a bit of a twist on the norm. As a retired hero needing to find new purpose in this superpowered society, Robert has become a dispatcher for a hero management company, which means coordinating his team while they're out in the field and performing hero work. Doesn't sound like too bad of a job, right? Except his team is made up of a group of ex-criminals who may or may not care about something so lame as doing the right thing. The cast is by far my favourite part about this game. You'd think that leading a team of bad guys doing good things, that the characters would lean a little too far into Suicide Squad territory, but it actually doesn't. Dispatch is much more interested in getting to the hearts of its characters, and it's not just your team you'll manage that will be there. You've also got your beautiful superhero boss Blonde Blazer, your mentor and father figure Chase, who is also a retired superhero, your new friend Royd, and of course, I can't leave out your little dog Beef, rounding out the cast and providing a good mix of characters, all with their own dynamics that will give you many different angles the story will go in, and not just purely focus on one avenue. It almost feels more like a TV show in this way, with multiple plot threads all being balanced and weaving in and out of each other. I could definitely have seen this as a Netflix animated series if you took out the gameplay. Of course, with this being a narrative-based adventure game, dialogue choices are probably the most significant thing to mention, since this is exactly the kind of game where there are so many branching paths formed by the choices that you make that you could play through this game 10 different times and have 10 totally varying playthroughs. You are the player who will shape who Robert Robertson is and what kind of choices you will make as a mentor, a friend, and perhaps even a lover. Dispatch isn't a very serious superhero story. It definitely knows how to be when the story needs it, and there is definitely plenty of emotional depth to be found here in its writing, but this game is definitely primarily a comedy, and the dialogue choices are some of the best ways to express that if you so choose. It's got all the hallmarks of a modern millennial comedy: smart-ass dialogue, a slightly more than healthy dose of snark and cynicism, and quite a lot of foul language, so if you're the hand-on Bible type, then maybe you won't like the dialogue here. I did really enjoy the writing throughout the entire game, but I did feel like the first of the 8 episodes here that make up the story had a little bit too much 2025 lingo in it that might age a little badly over time, and I'm never a big fan of that. And the swearing was a little excessive to the point of sometimes feeling a little tasteless, but that's how these kind of dark comedies are these days, I guess. For the most part though, the story and dialogue was an absolute delight, and I don't really want to go into more about it in an effort to avoid spoilers, which is why we now have to move on to talking about the gameplay. Unfortunately, while not terrible, the gameplay is where Dispatch is at its weakest. There's not a lot of gameplay on offer here. There's obviously picking your dialogue options if you really count that, but there's 3 main other types of gameplay you'll be doing. The first is the most sparse, only happening a couple of times throughout the entire season, and that is hitting QTE style prompts to succeed or fail at certain actions like punching someone or dodging something. There's actually an option to turn these off entirely if you have bad reflexes and prefer to just enjoy the story, but I kept them on to keep me engaged, so it makes sense that it's not the most used form of gameplay, but I would have liked a little bit more of it. Maybe they're just trying to avoid the Assassin's Creed 2 moment of not hugging Leonardo da Vinci? I don't know, but if we get any more seasons down the line, give me more of this. The next and main type of gameplay you'll be doing is your actual dispatch work. When it comes time for you to stop cheesing people out or hitting on pretty ladies, you're gonna have to sit down at the desk and do some damn work. You've got your map of the section of Los Angeles that you and your team cover, and little mission prompts will pop up and have a timer for you to send out one of your heroes, I guess we'll call them. Each mission has its own issue that needs a hero's help, and as such, each mission will require certain skills and expertise at being able to successfully deal with it. This is where team management really comes into play, since each person on your team has their own stats in 5 fields. You have combat, vigor, mobility, charisma, and intellect. Each hero has their own preset build, but as they complete missions and gain EXP, they will level up, and it's up to you to put their levels into which stats you choose, and your choice how you build them. Do you have a team of people with all balanced stats? Probably not the best idea, but you totally can if you want. If there's a heated debate at a university, maybe send a hero with some charisma and intellect. If there's an out-of-control pub brawl, maybe send in someone with good combat and vigor stats. Each mission has its own needs that you must meet, and success or failure comes down to an overlap between what the job required and what the heroes you sent skills were. You'll have a percentage chance of success depending on how much overlap, and it becomes pretty much a D&D roll on whether or not you pass that check. Failure sometimes means the hero sent out will get hurt and their stats diminished as a result, so manage well. Each hero on the roster has their own abilities too, and they don't just affect themselves but also any other teammates you send them on missions with. Sometimes the synergy is what will make the difference between success and failure, and it's all up to you to be able to coordinate this best. The last type of gameplay present in Dispatch is hacking work, done remotely by you to sometimes fix issues on your own or to help out your team out in the field. These are pretty standard puzzle minigames where you move your little hacker guy around on a grid to be able to open and close paths, obtain passwords, circumvent viruses, and try to get to the end of the goal and succeed in the hack. You'll have to do this a fair bit, and the game does do a decent job of increasing the level of puzzle challenge and brainpower needed as the game goes on, but I did find these to be a little dry sometimes. All in all, I just wish there was maybe one more element of gameplay here, like maybe being able to walk around a hub and engage with characters yourself before sitting down for your dispatching shift or something. Without an extra element like that, it kind of feels like sometimes you're just watching a show that you sometimes have to make decisions in and shape the narrative, then boom, hit with a 30-minute dispatching section just to pad out the game. What I'm saying is that the gameplay isn't bad per se, but it's minimal enough that when you do get hit with a bit of a stretch of it, that it feels a little out of place. It's very clear that the story and art were the main priority, and there isn't necessarily anything wrong with that. I'd just like another element here if we get any further content down the line from Ad Hoc. Since I mentioned that the art was a main priority, let's talk about the design. The thing you would have noticed pretty much immediately in this review is that Dispatch is a really nice game to look at. The art style here is gorgeous. It's got this 3D cel-shaded look to it that reminds me of something like Hi-Fi Rush, but with more graphical detail. There's not much more to say. The game is colourful and vibrant, detailed, has great lighting, the animations are crisp, and the game's just a joy to look at. Not only that, but it's also a joy to listen to, thanks to a legitimately fun soundtrack and great vocal performances all around, including but not limited to Aaron Paul, Moist Critical, Alana Pierce, and Jeffrey Wright. I can't think of a single character that I think had a bad performance here, although it is always a little weird hearing an Australian accent in entertainment. I think that the episodic structure works really well for this game. You have an 8-episode game here, with the average episode length being around an hour long. It's gonna have to be up to you on whether a story game clocking in at around 8 hours is gonna be worth the launch price or not, but I think $45 Australian is definitely worth the quality that we have here. Interestingly, Dispatch is released on both PC and PlayStation 5 so far, and these types of games totally do work on console, but this game, with how the actual dispatch work goes with the sort of sim management gameplay style, I can't imagine how well that plays on a controller. If you've played this and you played it on a controller, Let me know how that experience went for you in the comments. That's pretty much everything about the game. Let's move on to the conclusion. Dispatch is a great comeback and return to form for this genre that died out several years ago, and I hope this isn't the last we've seen of it. For positives, we have a very engaging and entertaining story about what it means to be a hero, a great cast of characters that I think I'll give you the side eye if you don't like, a great art style and voice acting performances all around, a fun soundtrack and narrative choices that actually make you feel like your playthrough is truly your own. For negatives, we have only limited kinds of gameplay, even if it does ramp up nicely in intensity as the game goes on, some slightly edgy dialogue that might age a bit over time, and maybe not enough content for some people depending on what you want out of a game. Personally, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with Dispatch, and while not perfect all around, I would highly recommend it to anyone who enjoys a good story-based game or a superhero story. I'll be giving Dispatch a score of 8.5 out of 10. I also think that it's pretty cool that the episodes didn't have much of a wait time from the first to the last. It wasn't a story that took 6 months to conclude, and while I don't want this genre to be oversaturated again, I'm very glad we're getting high quality games like this again to break up from the regular stuff we play. That's going to be all for the review, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like or even subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. See ya.